I really needed this. Space Sweepers is a new Netflix original movie from South Korea. It's sci-fi with action and adventure and heart. Set in the year 2092, Space Sweepers follows the crew of a space junk collector ship called the Victory. When they discover a child named Dorothy that's known to be a weapon of mass destruction, they get involved in a risky business deal. This felt a little like The Wandering Earth with a touch of Elysium and WALL-E. This South Korean sci-fi action adventure is a wild ride, and forgive me, but I am just going to gush over this because I had so much fun. There is a lot of fast-paced action, and yes, some of it does look like it came from a video game, but the graphics are still really done well, and combined with the quick editing, it makes for an intense ride. We have 3 misfit-type space junk workers. They salvage all the debris that's flying around in space in near orbit of Earth, and in addition to the crew, they have a robot with quite an enjoyable personality. There's Captain Jang, a hard-drinking and wickedly smart captain of the ship, which, like I said before, is called the Victory. She is tough, and we get to learn later on how brilliant she really is. We also have Mr. Park, or Uncle Tiger, who is the ship's engineer. He's covered in tattoos and he's really tough. He's got this checkered past and you wouldn't want to double cross him, but he's also got a surprising soft side to his personality. Then there's Tae-ho. He's the pilot and he is extremely talented. I mean, he can fly their large space barge with deft and ability. Finally, we have Dorothy. She's a cute little girl with a loving personality, and she'll get you with her eyes and her sense of humor, but apparently she's also a weapon of mass destruction, so you don't want to make her mad. So like a lot of Korean films and shows, this encompasses a wide range of emotionality to the story. It's certainly not 1, 2, or even 3-dimensional. I mean, the story manages to deliver on a handful of different emotional planes, and it does so really effectively. The movie starts out with some great, fast action and kind of sets the stage and tone for what's to come. I think it's fairly obvious that most of the opening scene, and well, really the entire movie, was shot either on a green screen or as CGI, but the wonderful thing about it is that it's not bad CGI. There are some moments that you can tell are animated, but they're also in the midst of some crazy action sequences, so your eyes don't get focused on the imperfections for too long. Most of it, though, looks really good, and I became immersed in the world that they were building. There are also some points where these warrior robots are utilized. They're powerful and cool-looking soldiers, and when they engage, there is some all-out action, and it's so exciting. Because this involves basically all of the people of the world in some fashion. I mean, you know, like, it's not just like there's only one nationality out there collecting space trash. The languages are all over the place. The main language spoken in the film is Korean, but we also get some English, Spanish, French, and maybe even some German and Russian. I just loved the international flair that the movie had. The premise of the film is that Dorothy is said to be a weapon of mass destruction, and there are a few factions that would love to get their hands on her, which means they're probably willing to pay huge amounts of money to gain possession. This becomes the initial motivation for the crew of the Victory. They're not a rich bunch, and they have all of these mounting debts they need to repay, but motivations don't always remain constant. While the setting for this is mainly space, we learn that the Earth is becoming more and more uninhabitable due to pollution and waste, and a corporation has built a living place where only the rich and the worthy can live, so it's a bit like Elysium. The head of the corporation is played by Richard Armitage, and he gives us a decent, greedy corporate guy. Now, normally I like to get character development somewhere near the first part of the film so I can begin to connect with the characters and understand where they're coming from and why they act the way they do. At about the halfway point is where we really start to get a little backstory on our main players in this, and it felt very natural to have this development placed at this part of the story. I had been enveloped with the action and some drama, figured out which characters I liked just based on actions I witnessed, and then got to find out why they were the way they were. And we also get to see a good amount of character growth as the story goes along, which is always nice to experience. In addition to the action, there is also a decent amount of comedy to this. I mean, there's even a point of slapstick at one point, and that silliness wasn't terrible. I mean, it might have been slightly out of place in relation to the rest of the movie, but it didn't bother me when it was happening. There's also some juvenile humor that works in the situation and is used at the right time for some needed levity. Now, I'm not sure if you've seen Train to Busan, but that's a South Korean action horror that made me cry. The level of emotion it brought was very surprising, and I was caught off guard at how much it affected me. And this is like that. I got sucked into the story and then connected with the drama and the characters so much that at the climax of this, I had some tears. It was moving and touching, and I was fully invested. And this isn't a perfect film by any means. In the final act, there are several continuity issues, and I also don't think the villain was as well defined as they could have been. Plus, the villain had something that was going on with their body at various times, and it wasn't really explained. Even with the glaring flaws, this was such a wild and fun experience. I wish I could have seen this in the theater on the big screen because I think the action would have been just even more immersive. Now, maybe I'm reading into it, but at one point it looked like there was a small Easter egg reference to an android from Aliens, Bishop. I just thought that was kind of a cool thing to toss in. This is 2 hours and 16 minutes, and I was never bored. The pace moved along, and I think the story has really helped because it transitions from emotional tone to emotional tone really well, and it doesn't sit in one so long that you feel trapped. But those transitions, they also feel natural. It's not bouncing around just out of randomness. So if you're looking for something fun that will also touch your heart, certainly you are going to want to check this one out. There's no sex or nudity, some profanity, and a lot of violence. I give Space Sweepers 4.5 out of 5 couches. So are you a fan of South Korean movies? Do you have a favorite or one that you can recommend? I have several that I absolutely love, but I'd love to know what yours are in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.